And this paper detailed how the CIA's mind control program, MKUltra, was not stopped in 1973 as the CIA had told Congress.
Hey guys, it's Jose Galison. You're watching No Way Jose. You can find this on No Way Jose YouTube channel, all major auto podcatchers, and Rumble as well. I do want to let you guys know that today's episode was brought to you by Nadeau Shave Co. Big Shave has been psyoping the American people for decades with their multi-blade razor scam. Get rid of that razor burn, irritation, and ingrown hairs caused by that expensive bullshit, the multi-blade cartridges. I mean, those things are what, like $20 for like 3 or 4 or some shit? It's ridiculous. And they don't really last that long. These things are much better. Return to the traditional shave. You don't need that expensive crap. The Nadeau Shave Co. supplies you with single stainless steel blades just like your grandpa used to use. High quality stuff. You can look at that thing. Look at the picture. Look at it there if you're not on audio. But yeah, this is good stuff whether you're just shaving, where you're edging up, or you're shaving your entire face. This is better quality shave and way cheaper. The standard issue includes one traditional safety razor with a box of 100 stainless steel razor blades. $75 is what it is for the entire. Allows you to shave for the entire year, or you can sign up for the quarter shave club, which is more for people who shave on the daily. So that'll give you about a 25 cents per shave type deal. So that's NadeauShaveCo.com. Keep your eyes out for new shave body and hair soaps coming out here soon. NadeauShaveCo.com. Use code Jose for 10% off your entire order. Let them know I sent you. Support them. Support me by supporting them. But yeah, let's go ahead and get our guests in here and get into it. What's up, Jacob? How you doing?
Oh, not too bad. How are you doing?
Doing good. This is the first time I've had you on the show, so I guess I'll just let you take a moment to let my audience know who you are, what you're about, kind of like what your show is, kind of where your show's at these days. I know your show's called Rise to Liberty, so there's liberties in the name. It's pretty obvious, but I mean, hell, when I started out, I was pretty much kind of a liberty podcaster as well. I mean, we're here to talk about the false memory syndrome, which seems to be a rabbit hole you went down recently. So I don't know if maybe you kind of had a similar, I don't know, necessarily a change of heart. I wouldn't say that. Like for me, I'm still like an anarchist, ANCAP, agorist, all those terms. I don't know. That's just not where my current interests are, really. I've talked enough about theory, and every now and then I'm sure I'll do a theory episode. I just had Eric Brakey on recently, but definitely much more of a parapolitics episode show these days. So I don't know if maybe you've been kind of feeling similar vibes, if that's where your heart's tugging you at these days. But I just kind of let my audience know who you are, what you're about, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, my name's Jacob. So this whole show started, kind of with the launch of Operation Warp Speed, because everything after that just seemed pro censorship in every way, unpersoning, and I've always been fairly radical. I mean, I first saw Ron Paul against Giuliani. I saw that live on TV. It's my first introduction, and then right out of high school, I picked up his books, and it was all downhill from there. But eventually I just got to the point where I said, well, I've got to get involved, because like just talking about it every so often isn't going to save the world. Not that I ever thought that I was going to save the world, but so yeah, got deeply involved, still am involved. I'm actually chair of my county affiliate and help run communications for my state affiliate. So I'm definitely still involved in LP stuff, although I'm really focused locally. I don't give a shit about national.
Yeah.
It's garbage. I can barely do anything at the state level. Like, we have the same problems in our state capital as DC. So, and not to mention we have like the UN coming and knocking on our door and building smart cities and all kinds of nonsense. I don't have time for national. So yeah, I'm still focused on the mission of liberty, period. Like that's the only way forward. And I mean, what's the opposite? Slavery.
Mm.
So that's why I stuck with the name. However, as far as my show goes, definitely had all the big names on. However, there is only so much you can talk about when it comes to theory.
Mm.
Like you, I like it, but there's other more important things that I think affect our life more. But I do think it's kind of all related. And
Mm.
so I'm picking a lane and I'm going down it. And
Yeah.
that's pretty much where I'm at now.
Yeah, I mean, even where my show shifted to parapolitics, it's more of an outgrowth of that because it's like, I don't
Yeah.
know. It's like I've kind of, feel like I've rambled on enough about theory. I've done enough theory stuff. I still need to finish my fucking live reading series of Democracy God That Failed with Toad.
Yeah.
But, but like I've now, I mean, I've kind of talked enough about the evils of the state and in a theory type sense. And now this is just kind of like, I guess, not necessarily application. I guess it's the state, applying their powers. So that is kind of. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are conspiracies and stuff that aren't necessarily state related, but those
Yeah.
are usually what draw my attention. I'm like, I can see the glowies hiding in the background, and I'm gonna find them. That's kind of where my head's at. So that's kind of
Yeah.
I guess my bias out there. That's my angle. I'm generally coming from a liberty angle, although I know the parapolitics world is very much infested, I guess maybe by the rest word, with like commies and bullshit. Although I've run into some that I either can tolerate or I'm cool with, and that's cool.
Same.
So when it comes to like parapolitics type stuff, whatever, we can get along with that. I have no problem working with people using other people. Not, I guess using their work might be the wrong way to put it, but like I also have no problem with them using my work, quote unquote
Yeah,
work. I
right.
feel weird calling it work, but you know what I mean. Just kind of a collaborative thing to kind of work together because whatever. Even with these commies, I mean, I know their ultimate angle is kind of like, oh, the capitalist or whatever. But it's like okay, but even then, it's kind of like it's almost like we're almost arguing the same thing in a certain sense because when a lot of times how they
Yeah.
define capitalists is like, oh, you mean
Literally
these,
not
like,
capitalism.
yeah. Oh, you mean these mega corporations that are backed by government? Yeah, fuck them too. So okay, cool. I'll whatever. We'll both talk shit about them. I'm cool with that. So, but yeah, today I'm having you on to talk about the false memory syndrome. You put out a pretty
Yep.
sick thread here recently.
Thank you.
Probably one of the more detailed ones. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if I've done a full on false memory syndrome episode before, but I've definitely talked about it multiple times. I think it's probably been maybe a few episodes that took up like a fairly good segment at least. So we've definitely talked about it. This is probably like I said, the most in depth I've seen. Kind of the biggest angle that seems to be you're kind of breaking down the specific individuals involved, and then kind of their the things they've been responsible for to some extent or another. I mean, a lot of these things I've already covered a lot of this stuff on my show before, or for example, I think you brought up like the Patty Hearst stuff, which is,
Yep.
I mean, I've like touched on it, I've not like deep dive, but like for example, my co-host on my Already Dead show, my live stream I do every week, he's covered that. And so we've kind of like I've been hanging out in these ponds, and there's a lot of through line with the false memory syndrome and stuff. I've been kind of,
Oh yeah.
as of late, also just kind of like one thing that's really kind of caught my interest is a lot of the SRA stuff. It's just because it's like, as I said, there's glowies hiding in the background. It's like there's also like this weird satanic component lurking in the background always, and you're like, what the fuck is going on here? And then we have this false memory syndrome foundation that swoops in and goes, oh no, you guys are just imagining this as satanic panic, blah, blah,
Yep.
blah. And, when it comes to satanic panic, I do want to clarify, there were definitely, I'm sure, situations during the satanic panic that were bullshit, that were just like hyped
Yeah.
up. Although I would say, it's my opinion, they likely were probably to some extent artificially hyped up because they were the bullshit ones.
There were definitely some of that.
So it's like, whereas like some of the real shit kind of got buried, and even the big stuff that didn't really get buried, they found ways to obfuscate things or move things around to where. A good example is the McMartin one.
Yes.
So for example, like I think you'll talk to a lot of serious people, like even within our movement, there are that will be like, no, that was just bullshit. That got proved wrong. and I believe it was like, I
What
think it
about
was
the tunnels?
yeah, exactly. Well, the tunnels, if I remember correctly, I forget because there was like multiple reports or some shit. At the time, if I'm recalling this correctly, the tunnels were to some extent sort of like, oh yeah, that is bullshit. Because I think there was some report that came out that said there wasn't or didn't mention them or something along those lines. But I believe, I don't know if it was like a decade later or what, there was like a treasure trove of files that were dropped in relation to the Finders cult, which is another
Yep.
SRA related type thing. And within those, the report came out of the Mick Martinson, another one of the reports that did talk about the tunnels and other weird satanic shit that was in there. All sorts of stuff. Believe they
Yeah.
had like an alarm system essentially that like it's set up that was clearly kind of like a that way they could kind of communicate between the fucking basement and upstairs, and it's a whole thing. But the point being is that clearly got obfuscated. It's also kind of weird that dropped in a Finders cult files, like
Yeah.
like it was like a FOIA request, I believe, for Finders stuff. So it's like, what are you saying here? Like, are you telling me there's a connection? What are you saying? So,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Well, and
yeah,
that's so I don't like to automatically just say, well, there's obviously something wrong here. And it's like that's kind of, a confirmation bias. And although I do start basically from the starting point of government's wrong, they're screwing us over until proven otherwise. Um, I mean, how many times do we have to be treated so poorly in so many different ways, and then find out later that we were treated poorly to finally be like, okay, you guys are untrustworthy. I'm going to make sure that what you're telling me is actually the truth, is actually what's happening before I just say, oh, yeah, this is it. Like, it's, I don't know. It drives me nuts. And I think that's kind of why I do this as well, is just, I started young with the fascination of propaganda, subliminal messages, and I just always found that fascinating. And it's so easy for me, or has been easy for me in the past, to be able to recognize patterns. And I don't even think it's that complicated. It's just, how many times do we have to be lied to?
yeah. I mean, once you've learned about McMartin, once you learned about Finder's cult, once you learned about Epstein, you got Diddy now,
Hmm.
the Franklin scandal. How the Patty Hearst stuff. Like, the list could go on. At a certain point, you go, there's a
Yeah.
lot of weird patterns I'm recognizing, and that's a lot of what the show has been as of late, is pattern recognition.
Yeah.
And so here we are. We're now. So with this false memory syndrome, I guess kind of the starting point, like where I guess kind of where I think when I did cover it, we did kind of go into the I think where we did put the focus on when I talked about it last time, which I can't recall which episode it was. We did kind of go into the formation, which I'm not sure you really went too much into the thread, if I recall.
Not
Maybe
not
you
for
did.
not for
Yeah,
this one. It
yeah,
will be touched on because it
yeah.
is incredibly important. And once you
Mhm.
get into the story, it's very clear who's telling the truth and who's not.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I haven't looked maybe I didn't look deep enough into that one because I didn't find any. I don't recall, and maybe we'll get into that later. Maybe we'll do a future installment or something. But I didn't recall there being anything bulletproof. My recollection is that I forget the names of the individuals involved, but there was essentially this couple, and they had a kid that I guess in their adulthood, or their adult years, claimed I guess essentially had repressed memories, they claimed, and was of the belief that their father molested them. And then they then went and created the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, kind of like a, whoa, look at this, these false memories have been created. Obviously I didn't. This only came up till now. And to be fair, like, that's fishy from its start. It's kind of
Yeah.
fishy. I don't know necessarily the truth one way or the other, but either way, to then create this foundation. But even then, like, the formation, I don't know. I don't know to what extent that really actually is a key point in this. Really, it's the focus of this thread is really where the key point is because it got created, and then the problem becomes, then it got flooded with other individuals who had connections elsewhere. They were pretty much almost damn near all entirely MK Ultra scientists
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
weirdly somehow got
Uh,
attracted to
it
this.
actually, from just the very, like I said, from the foundation of this whole thing, it actually was. So for anyone not familiar, um, it the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, the two people who created it, Pamela and Peter Freud, or Freud, um, created it in response to their adult daughter, Jennifer Freud, accusing her father, Peter, of SA when she was a child or a teenager, I think. So where I think this actually is important in the whole story is because the false memory syndrome has been used to discredit almost every single case since its inception. So let's see, it was founded in, I think, 1992. And so a poll was done before the inception of the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. Up to that point, 80% plus of news reports of child abuse focused strictly on the survivors, and they called them survivors. After 2 years after the formation of this foundation, let's see, if the news completely flipped, it was 80% plus focusing on false memories. Now, an important point is that it's not a diagnosis. It never has been. It's not in the DSM-5. So there is no official diagnosis. It's more of anything a hypothesis. What's really interesting is Peter and Pamela never presented any sort of evidence to back up where they came up with this. But it gets even a little bit more interesting. I've just started peeling back this layer, but who's Peter? Peter, well, both Peter and Pamela, neither of them have any sort of credentials or expertise or any history with mental health, memory, psychology. They have nothing that would lead them to be experts in this at all. So Peter himself is considered to be a American mathematician and professor at the University of Pennsylvania, which anyone who has seen the thread, there is a tie to UPenn. University of Pennsylvania is a well-known university in which the CIA has contracted out research. A lot of human experimentation research took place due to things going on there. So there is definitely some ties. I do think it's important, especially because it's taught in textbooks, it's used in court. I mean, and it's a complete sham that from the very beginning. The only, I think, really big part of this that gives them any credibility is the huge list of doctors that have signed on to it. But, which is where my thread started, going through these people, almost every single one of them have ties not just to the CIA, but specifically human experimentation research.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess we'll go ahead and get into that. We'll kind of follow along with a thread with the individuals. So, I mean, for those who want to, you have your right there, Rise to Liberty. Yep. So people can go check it out and go find that thread. I believe it's your pinned tweet right now.
Yep.
But we have Martin T. Orne, the first one. Now, I will admit this one's probably a little bit, not one that I'm as familiar with. Although I wouldn't be surprised if I had read them in maybe Aberration, The Heartland, The Real or something. She has a really good section in that book going into MK Ultra and just kind of generally speaking, kind of all the MK Ultra associated type things and experiments that went on around that time. But just kind of tell me what you can about Martin T. Orne.
So, from what I can gather, now just to preface all of this with, since this spider web's out, I'm one person. I can only read so much in a day. However, so from what I've been able to gather, Martin T. Orne, he was Well, I'm actually not sure about his earlier life. However, he was one of the original False Memory Syndrome Foundation. Uh, I guess he was like one of the people that got it up and running. He was one of the first people to sign on to it to really give them like any sort of credibility. But he was a senior CIA Navy researcher. He himself was based at the University of Pennsylvania. Um, he, while there, he was very well known for, and this was also public too. His experimental psychiatry laboratory. I can't find like an official record of it. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So let's see. Yeah, he was on the advisory board. So he was one of the many research scientists that contributed to the MK Ultra mind control experimentations. Let's see, the big connection with him is that he got funding from the Human Ecology Fund, which I don't know if anyone has looked into this, but that is a very well known CIA cover that came out of Cornell University. The CIA really likes using the cover of a university to be able to do this, and it makes total sense. That's where you're going to find all of these young, forward-thinking people trying things and testing the boundaries. So why not?
Yeah,
Like,
they're
I
also
totally get it.
typically they're also typically to some extent publicly funded. So
Yeah,
most
yeah.
universities, so it's like they already kind of have their dick in the pie there, so they may as well just go ahead and fuck it. So you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, yeah, go on.
So he does have a direct history through Navy research. So that's what his. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. I don't have it in my notes, but he did help the Navy perform within their own version of MK Ultra. So basically, all branches of the military have their own version.
Real quick, and I will say the Navy, from my research, is kind of seems to be one of the spookiest of the spooks of the intel world when it comes to
Yeah.
the military intel. I believe they were, maybe I might be wrong, but they to some extent were kind of a precursor to a lot of the CIA and OSS stuff, if I recall
Yep.
correctly. So, and I think it kind of sprouted out from there. So, but go on.
So Martin T. Orrin, in the thread I brought up, he was financed by the Human Ecology Fund, a CIA cover, also funded the gruesome brainwashing and remote mind control experiments of Dr. Irwin Cameron, Montreal's Allen Memorial Institute, which, by the way, just looks like a creepy place. Still standing, by the way. What's really interesting is all of the places that your mind goes to when you think of MK Ultra. That's the kind of thing that Dr. Cameron was doing, starving people, erasing memories. And mind you, this happened in Canada.
Wasn't he the one? I mean, maybe I'm recalling correctly. The name sounds familiar, but I feel like, I mean, maybe you don't know this, but I feel like he was the one that was able to break or claimed to be able to break down people's essentially psyche to the point to where they would recognize him as like their father, essentially.
Yep, that was him.
Okay. Yep. All right. Cool. Go ahead. There you go.
So, I mean, what's interesting is because like all of this funding, if you're a scientist, you don't really care where your money comes from. Now, some of these scientists, it has been later discovered that they did know exactly where it was coming from, usually because that's how they got the job in the first place. Money speaks. And when you're in the military or you just leave the military and you're looking for jobs, I mean, it's the end of World War II. So the late 40s and everything, it makes sense. It fits. So, let's see here. So I didn't go too much into Orn, at least initially. He does pop back up because, like I said, all of this spider webs out and spider webs keep intersecting with each other. So based on that, let's see here. I know I had a special note about him. Okay, that actually comes up later. So to keep progressing the story, the CIA not only was doing the most terrible, unethical, illegal things with human experimentation, but they were also just, being straight drug dealing, you know, gun dealing thugs. So
Gladio.
this was, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
And
so,
likely some kids in there, but that usually that's just
Yeah.
my I don't know if it's necessarily say belief. Belief might be even too strong a word. That's my inclination that just seems to be too easy with these Gladio networks to throw in some kiddos in there. Okay, depending on whichever node of the network you're talking
Yeah.
about. Maybe not every node would accept the kids, but
I mean-
some of those nodes would be like, yeah, bring on the kids.
it's a form of currency to
Yeah.
these sick fucks. So,
Yeah.
one more note on, let's see, where was it? Of course, I just passed it. Okay, so just one more note on Cameron. He was a trained psychiatrist. His research specialties of the CIA black psychiatrists included electroshock lobotomies, drugging agents, incapacitants, hypnosis, sleep deprivation, and radio control of the brain, among hundreds of sub projects. So he was a major player in a lot of this, along with like Sidney Gottlieb and stuff. But he was found out due to John Marks, who is the person that got all of the boxes of MK Ultra documents. It was 139 boxes from a FOIA request, and then apparently his life turned upside down after that. People started sleeping on his lawn and all sorts of stuff. But he wrote a really good book. Highly recommend it. Let's see. So there was a connection also to Project Often and Project Chickwit. There was social laboratories set up through the Scientific Engineering Institute. Now, this is basically just the same thing as the Human Ecology Fund. I mean, it is a real organization, I guess, if you can say that. They do real things, but that's kind of the cover story of all of this. Like, I have a saying that, Hitler liked dogs.
Yeah.
Really bad people are capable of a good thing every now and then, like
Hitler like dogs and Jews kill chickens.
Yeah.
I saw a meme the other day. It just made me think of it, where it was like Hitler petting a dog, and then like Jews with a chicken. Because like for those who don't know, that is like a thing. That is like
Yeah.
I guess
They put their sin into it.
Yeah, it's
weird.
Yeah, whatever. I don't really like chickens, so it's not even really like it's just weird. I don't know. Fuck chickens.
It's weird. It's
So,
weird.
if you're gonna kill an animal, I guess I'm cool with you just fucking ritualistically killing chickens. I don't give a fuck. So, but go ahead.
So, Boston's Scientific Engineering Institute, SEI, another CIA funding cover. So this is interesting. This is kind of a side note, but it was funded by Edwin Land, who was like top head guy at Polaroid. So, that's snap a picture and thank human experimentation for that. Let's see. So the same year that this was going on, so I mean, we've got all of these different human experimentation cases going on at the same time, hundreds of thousands of dollars moving, because there's no way what John Marks was able to get in those documents were all the financial records. There's just no way. Not to mention any black money that nobody knows about. So all of this at the very same time, let's see. Dr. Orne, I'm not sure, with Scientific and Engineering Institute funding, marked out his own mind control corner at University of Pennsylvania. Once again, you start recognizing patterns when you just keep digging into this, and this is one of the things that keeps popping up is certain universities. Well, kind of went on a little tangent with the thread, but just kind of to illustrate like how far this reaches. So, according to Army records, the University of Pennsylvania hosted secret experiments in the 1960s of biochemical agents on prisoners at Holmesburg Prison. This is very well known, very well documented. I believe some people ended up getting a settlement. Lots of people died because it's really easy to prey on the people in society that society doesn't want.
Yeah. Well, they Manson was they did fucking prison MK Ultra experiments on him. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean they get paid for it. So and you're bored as shit. Like
yeah. And then on the university side, Ted K, he got MK Ultra in university as a like a fucking kind of prolific, really smart kind of guy, like super genius essentially, and they fucked with his mind there.
Exactly. And so when I was saying, I think that there's things out there that really affect us more than, people might want to think or give credit to. I personally believe that MK Ultra just, first of all, it's an umbrella term, but it affects everything around us. Like it has shaped the 20th and into the 21st century more than almost anything else that I can think of, at least directly. Of course, there's one-off incidents, but as a whole, I can't think of anything else that has shaped culture and just the way we live other than this. So that's where my mind started opening these pathways, and I just got sunk, And it's like I reached these points, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. So to move forward just a little bit, let's see. So at this point, well, I guess to finish up with the Holmesburg prison, basically the chemicals and all of these other things that were produced by Dow Chemical. There also was mentions of DuPont, which are both just terrible companies. When leftists talk about like companies that like poison the environment, those are these companies, obviously. So the prison experimentation stopped immediately because the lab burned down. I can't find much of anything on this. So if anyone knows anything, I would like to know. So send it my way. And then not too long after, I mean, there's few things that kind of matter, but not really to the story. But eventually we're reaching the church committee hearings, which my personal opinion, and this is just speculating, the church committee hearings happened intentionally. And it was a way for them to be able to be like, yeah, this is what we're doing, kind of test the waters to see what the public would do. But really they needed a way to move underground. So that's my personal opinion. Not sure where you would stand on that.
I also would be of the opinion it was probably to some, I mean, not even an opinion. I think it's pretty clear it was pretty much a limited hangout in some form. I forget the focus, but I know the focus of the church committee seems to be a lot of times was not really things that were that substantive or as bad. I mean, maybe I'm recalling this incorrectly, but I think they did. If I'm recalling correctly, they may have focused a lot on the fucking elephant situation with Jolly West, because it's kind of like, oh my god, look at what these people are doing with their tax money, how crazy. So that was kind of like the angle. Which, don't get me wrong, that is a funny story. But for those who aren't aware, Jolly West, which anyone who dabbles in these waters knows who Jolly West is. But he killed an elephant with way too much fucking LSDs. Which is like pretty nuts to kill an elephant with LSD. He says it was accidental. I mean, I don't really know why it wouldn't be accidental. I mean, I guess you could say that they were kind of trying to, I don't know, test to see if you could kill something with LSD. I don't know.
I mean think about it too. All of these guys all of these research scientists and all the glowies, they were taking this stuff too. So they're just out of their minds, just doing the craziest shit and just hoping they don't get caught. It's just mind blowing.
they had the one guy who I forget his name, but God, there was I think it was a project name and everything. It was kind of like around the MK Ultra. I don't know if it was specifically an MK Ultra thing, but where the dude jumped, or not jumped, clearly was probably pushed out of a window.
Frank
but he was
Olson.
Frank Olson, there you go. He's tripping
Yep.
balls out of his fucking mind. And he was kind of, from my recollection of the story, it was a long time. I believe it was in the Poisoner in Chief, the book on Gottlieb, I believe, which is kind of like I guess almost the dude above, kind of Jolly West is probably the better way to look at it.
Yeah.
You know, kind of like a step above. He wasn't really like the MK Ultra guy. Jolly West was like the MK Ultra guy, but he was more like the guy that was above MK Ultra and kind of like all the other projects that were kind of somewhat
Yep.
affiliated. He also was a lot about like bioweapons and stuff like that. So it wasn't specifically mind focused. So all like crazy assassination weapons you've seen of the CIA, a lot
Heart
of that
attack
stuff.
gun.
Yeah,
Yep.
heart attack gun stuff. Like that's like kind of his area, but within that area is kind of included MK Ultra stuff. So
Yeah.
so he was kind of like the bigger guy, and yeah, I forgot the whole point of what I was getting at with bringing up Gottlieb. But what were we even talking about there? Why did I bring up Gottlieb? Why the fuck did I just bring up Gottlieb?
You know, I don't know off the top of my head.
I had a point.
But-
I think I brought it up. Oh no, I was just saying that was the book that it
Yes.
was in. It was a book focused on him, Gottlieb. I believe that's where I heard the story about this, and so my only point was it's been a while, so I forget the specifics on it. But yeah, it seemed like this guy was a loose cannon. Well, not necessarily. Maybe loose cannon might not be the best way to put it. But he seemed to look like he wanted to back out. Was kind of
Yeah.
like not comfortable with what things that were going on. Things.
Yeah,
that
I mean,
like-
he was,
Yeah.
from what I understand, there's actually a really good documentary about this on Netflix of all places. It's something Wormwood, or maybe it's
Yeah.
just called Wormwood.
I think wasn't that like a project name that they were working on? I believe was Wormwood.
think
or
so.
something like that. Yeah. Because when
Yeah,
we say
so-
MK Ultra, a lot of people don't realize when we say MK Ultra, like you said earlier, it's a catch-all term. It's like also it's a catch-all term while also actually being a specific term. Because technically speaking, MK Ultra was one specific project within it, but there were all sorts of other similar projects like that were basically kind of a similar thing. So yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's, I think 211 sub projects that we know of. So this, plus there's tons that have come out later that aren't really considered but are loosely. Yeah, so it's an umbrella. It's just easier than going sub project 36, sub project 72. But so to wrap up just real quick, because this is kind of important to the story itself. According to Army records, Ornay's stomping grounds at Penn U was a beehive of secret experiments in the Vietnam War period. The Pentagon and the CIA, under the auspice of ORD's Steve Aldrich, a doyen of occult and psychological studies, conferred the agency's most lucrative research award upon the University of Pennsylvania, which, if they got an award for this, you know they're putting in work. So they basically invented 16 newly concocted biochemical weapons, which all killed humans in terrible, just god-awful ways. And then let's see, the church committee. Let's see. So apparently the official story is that MK Ultra had been abandoned. I don't know why they would. They were glowing successes.
Well, this goes to what we were saying before. Technically, they're not lying. So this is kind of the game they
Yeah,
play.
That's true.
I would be willing to guarantee, I would put money on it, that MK Ultra no longer exists in the specific
Agreed.
sense of the actual project name, the specific project. But all you gotta do is change the name and basically do the same thing.
Yep. Just change the name, change the funding, subcontract a couple of things, move it around here and there, create a fake PO box. Like, it's not that hard even today. So apparently there was confirmation of a lot of this stuff that came later on. So this is where it goes underground, which is where the introduction of the cults were. I think the really important part is just to look at Jonestown. I think that's just like the best glowing example glowing, pun intended.
Ew.
So there's a lot of really weird connections with Jonestown.
A lot.
Yeah, which
Jonestown series, for those who haven't seen it on my channel, go to the playlist.
absolutely wonderful, highly recommended.
Yeah.
Though there was, let's see, Joseph Halsinger. He was the aide of the Congressman Leo Ryan. So Joseph Halsinger actually tried to expose the connection of the CIA and the connection to Jonestown. He tried to do this apparently at a like a conference, I guess, for psychologists. It was in San Francisco. It was actually about Jonestown, but it was about psychosocial implications of the Jonestown phenomenon. Halsinger maintained that a CIA rear support base had been in collusion with Jones to perform medical and mind control experiments at the People's Temple. So let's see. The former congressional aide cited an essay he had received in the mail, The Penal Colony, which in my thread I did provide a link to. It's really interesting. It was written by a Berkeley psychologist, which the author did emphasize that rather than terminating MKUltra, the CIA shifted its programs from public institutions to private cult groups, including the People's Temple. And this is where everything gets weird. So, in Jonestown, there was a doctor with a connection to pretty much everything. From what I can tell, he was like the Sidney Gottlieb of everything moving forward. His name was Dr. Lawrence Laird Layton, out of the University of California at Berkeley, of course, Berkeley. So he was formerly a chemist for the Manhattan Project and head of the Army's Chemical Warfare Research Division in the early 1950s. And then this is a weird connection where, like I said, it starts getting weird. So Larry Layton, Dr. Layton's son, was one of the people who led the death squad out to the airstrip in Guyana. So, and that's like, this is all surface level stuff. Like, it doesn't take much. And I'm saying that for a reason, because it does kind of matter to the story. So Larry Layton, you know, one of these people out there killing the congressman.
Which, by the way, the only congressman who's ever died in the line of duty.
Yes.
Pretty wild. But all right, go on.
Other than this, I don't really know much about him. If he was, you know, I know there was a book written about him.
Yeah, he was really big on the MKUltra stuff, like in trying to expose it. So he was kind of definitely too over the target. So, yeah.
So Michael Mayers, I think that's how you pronounce it. He was the author of Was Jonestown a CIA Medical Experiment? Haven't read the book, but it's definitely in my library. He scavenged for information on the People's Temple for 6 years. And this was his conclusion at the end of all of his research. His quote was, "The Jonestown experiment was conceived by Dr. Layton, staffed by Dr. Layton, and financed by Dr. Layton. It was as much his project as it was Jim Jones."
Mm-hmm.
Pretty intense.
I did want to take a moment to, I think, as dark as Jonestown is, I think, and we went into this a lot in the series. It seems like, from my understanding, after digging into it a decent amount, it sounds to me like it was kind of, I mean, at least to one extent. I'm sure there were multiple aims of Jonestown, but the aim, because obviously everyone knows Jonestown. They immediately think the mass suicide. I'm of the opinion, after kind of digging through it, I don't think, I mean, maybe there were some people who did kill themselves, but even though, and of a voluntary nature, I guess, to some extent, to the extent you could say someone who's been MKUltra was a voluntary, but they were the ones who I think even did kill themselves were coerced pretty over the top in the moment. So it wasn't even like you could say they really did it of their own volition. And I think it seems to me that a large chunk, if not the bulk, were killed, is what it seems like. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of people died, so it's awful. But for the purposes of MK Ultra and what it can do to us, and like, can they? And I think it is possible to. I mean, I don't know if necessarily they can do like a perfect Manchurian candidate. I think most of the time, probably this stuff is more moving, shuffling things around the edges, pushing people certain ways they want. But it seems to be that one of the aims was to kind of get these people to kill themselves, because they would do these things called the White Knight, where he had been doing this drill for a while, where he would give them like stuff to drink and he would tell them they're going to die, but then it would be like, you didn't, nope, look, you guys did good or did bad or whatever. This time, this wasn't real. Like, I was just, it was testing you guys, testing your faith or whatever. But I mean, even with all that prepping, all that mind fucking that was going on, still in the end, it seems like the majority of these people were likely killed, or even the ones who did kill themselves, it was very much like they hadn't really gotten into their mind. It was a coercive thing. They took it as a way out because they knew they were probably going to get murdered anyways. So I think it's in some sense kind of a white pill. The idea that they really don't have as much as some people would like to think control, but then I also think they have more control than a lot of people think as well. So it's a mixed bag. I think there probably are select people you can very much, maybe they're more susceptible to it. But I mean, hell, these were even like essentially a lot of these people were people he actually genuinely acquired as cult members over time, and they became part of his group, and he brought them along with him. There is also some intrigue about whether a lot of these people came voluntarily in the first place. It seems a lot of people were almost forced over. But either way, it just seems like, so these were people that you would think would be more susceptible to it. So it is a little, I find it a little bit surprising and encouraging that it seems it wasn't successful in that sense.
See, and I don't know if it was ever meant to be, or it was successful, because I think that they kind of just wanted to see what would happen, because I do know that happens quite a bit in like real academic research is, well, we have this, we can kind of recreate some, of the environment that we need, and let's just see what happens. And I mean, from what I understand about this doctor, seems like a real piece of shit that would do something like that.
Yeah.
Of course, that's, just my opinion. But anyone that would be involved in this, I don't know how you could have a clean conscience, be able to do or give the okay of anything like this and still be definitionally a good person.
Yeah, I get what you mean. It definitely was like a see what'll happen, but I definitely look at it as like an experiment, and I think there were multiple experiments going on, multiple hypotheses being tested. One of this hypothesis specifically we're speaking of is, can you drive someone to kill themselves in a semi-voluntary nature, to the extent you can consider it being voluntary of someone that you've essentially mind fucked, can you do that? Like, that was almost a hypothesis. A hypothesis being you can drive someone to suicide voluntarily. And it seems to be that hypothesis did not test out the way that they may have hoped it to have tested out. So I think there's something to there. The human spirit still presses on to some extent.
I agree. And I think it's interesting to point out is, so there's a lot of survivors of a lot of these experiments, and even with being completely ruined, and I mean ruined in, the sense of mentally, they're completely broken down and stripped of everything that they've built up to that point by some psychotic piece of shit. And even after that, they are still able to bounce back. I mean, it's never going to be the same, but a person can come back and a person can heal. And the human spirit is absolutely amazing, but I think that that's what they kind of exploit. Although, to their chagrin, I guess, they will never be able to fully control a person, which is what they want. We'll never be that perfect robot that they want us to be, but it's not going to stop them from trying. So there's always ways to protect yourself, though, is that's why I think these conversations are important, though, is because this actually does get these things out there and people can be aware and call bullshit when they see bullshit.
Yeah. By the way, I think I do want to split this into two. So for those listening, this is now I think going to become a series, unless you object to it, because I know we're about to get the SLA stuff, and I think the SLA really is probably almost 30 to 40 minutes on its own. So I wanted to just kind of warn you that before we got into it. So obviously we'll kind of wrap up whatever thoughts you have here before, or other notes you may have kind of in this realm, and then kind of shift into that in the next episode, because I don't want to get into something and then only half get into it in this episode. So, but yeah, with that, go on. If you have anything else to add on this.
Well, I think that's a wise decision. There's so much. I mean, there's almost 100 years of records to dig through, and we've only scratched the surface. I mean, this, like, I came into this doing this research strictly because of another side project that I'm working on, which is hits a lot closer to home, and I just traveled down the wormhole, and here we are. There is so much. Of course, we're only human. We can only do so much, but I'll do my part. There's definitely a lot more to come. I will gladly come back on anytime. There's already more getting ready to release. Like I told you, part 2 will be out later tonight when this is recorded. And so make sure and check that out, everybody. I don't know how many parts are going to be to this. And then they're all going to connect to different things. And there's going to be stuff that I cover on my show and on my Substack and on my Twitter. So those are that. And then I'll repost everything over to Telegram. There's always going to be a record somewhere. So,
and now we'll have this series to accompany it.
Yeah.
I think we'll probably end up doing, I would assume, probably 3 to 5 of these, as much depth as there is to this, and with more threads coming. And this does kind of dovetail into so much of stuff that I've already covered on my show. So it is like there's a lot of stuff in there.
Spider web.
So there's a lot of stuff ripe for conversation to kind of stew on as we go along in this. So this will be kind of while we are kind of covering false memory syndrome throughout this, it naturally dovetails through other things. So it will be a way for us to kind of go into exposition on other things as well, and kind of, touch on things I've touched on before, and just, kind of have some fun conversation. Yep. But I do think we're probably at a good time to go ahead and kill it. I know it's a little bit of a shorter episode, but we're at a spot where, like, if we get started, we got way more to do. So
it's a lot of information.
So let people know where they can find you at. Any other final closing thoughts? And I mean, you did kind of already give a lot of the stuff you have there, but if you have any other plugs or anything along those lines you want to drop while you're here, go ahead.
Yeah, honestly, what I already said, my Twitter, my Substack, and my show, risetoliberty.com/links, which is where you can find everything. I try to make it easy. I mean, you can find me everywhere, but those are the places I'm most active on: Twitter, Telegram, Instagram, and Substack is going to start heating up here in a minute. So make sure and get there.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on. We'll definitely do this again here soon, within like a week or two, whenever, I don't know.
Yeah.
I have other series going on too. So, but I do want to remind people, these episodes you're watching right now, you could have watched it about a week earlier if you supported the channel for as low as $2. That's patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. Like I said, the lowest level, $2, gets you the early access to all that stuff. There's varying levels all the way up to the highest levels of my sponsors, which I read them off every episode because I'm appreciative of their support. I have my co-host Toad of Tower Gang, at Tower Gang Toad. I have at Abrogate D's, at ZOVERACK, then at _Infinite Zeal, then Jacob Daniel, the Biblical Anarchy Podcast, the homie, been on his show for a while. We started out together, at Biblical Anarchy. Then I have Tim Tuttle, at Jolly on Klebold. I think he's the one who actually did the edit, that edit that I played at the beginning, which I very much, I love that one.
Sick edit.
It's short, concise, the point, hits so many of the beats and stuff I've been reeling on lately, so it's good stuff. Then I also have my good buddy Will Bell. He has the Rabbit Eye Wine. I kind of endorse it, kind of don't, because it's delicious, but it's also too delicious. So I don't know. Only buy like one at a time, I would suggest, because you'll probably drink it that night. And if you buy too many, you're going to drink a lot in a short period of time. And yeah, that's I don't know. I mean, I'm not a big alcohol guy anymore. I'm too old for that now. I don't know. It
Same.
fucking fucks up my sleep. And then the next day, like I could really have like probably a bottle of this wine and be the next. I wouldn't have a hangover, but I'd be like, ugh, the next day. But yeah, for those who want to, my show's No Way Jose. You can follow me on Twitter at Tagging Jose. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And with that, we are out. We'll have another installment for you guys here soon. Bye bye.
Later.